But as we kind of turn to the Bills offense now, we'll talk about both offenses to start with. And obviously, we're going to have a good amount to say about the Bills offense. Everybody's healthy. That's good to see. Everyone was a little bit worried about the receiving core. Doesn't look like that ended up being a problem going into everyone's full practice. MVS wasn't even on the practice injury report, as well as a couple other. Mike Edwards was another guy that Bills expected to see on the injury report and just isn't. So there was not as many injury worries as people had assumed. The Bills played it safe this offseason, especially after they had that injury to Matt Milano. And Matt Milano is the only person missing from their week 1 roster, guy you would love to have. But other than that, they came out with just one injury, it looks like, from their week 1 roster. But are you most excited to see, talk to me about the Bills offense now? Are you most excited to see this 12 personnel? Are you excited to see Curtis Samuel, Keon Coleman? What are you the most excited for as Sunday comes along at 1 p.m.?
I think I'm most excited to see Keon Coleman, and maybe I'll throw Dawson Knox in there because I think we all expect Dalton Kincaid to be one of the top targets, if not the top target. I think Kincaid is going to be the new wide receiver 1 for this offense. So I'm expecting him to have a huge role. But my question is, can you get both tight ends involved now that they're healthy? So let's just say Kincaid can get 7 catches for 115 yards and a touchdown. What can Dawson Knox do? Can he add 4 catches for 50 yards and maybe a touchdown? Can Keon Coleman add 5 or 6 catches? So I think those are my top 2 targets, I guess I would say, that I'm watching for is Keon Coleman, number 1, and then Dawson Knox with the 12 personnel aligning. And then obviously everything else too, a healthy Curtis Samuel, healthy MVS, Matt Collins. Is Matt Collins a starter? The Bills have him listed as a starter, right?
I guess by depth chart position he is, and the Bills have stuck to this depth chart so far. We'll talk about the defense in a moment, but it does by nature seem that he is the starter right now, Kevin. So whether that's for 1 game, 3 series, 1 play, it does look like Matt Collins will be in there. But I don't 100% agree. I know that Hamlin's listed as a starter, and McDermott said he will start. I don't 100% think that he's going to be in there on the first snap of the game. We'll see. He could quite frankly be in there for 1 snap to start the game, but he will have his time in the offense. I just don't overly think that I would classify him even by depth chart as a starter at this stage. So I think Curtis Samuel being a full participant today is really great news. You're going to see a totally revamped Bills offense. I think that it's better in some spots, namely behind James Cook. Ty Johnson's back. He was really not healthy coming off of that pec injury early on, and then didn't come back until week 10 by the time he was activated to the Bills roster. And then so you're going to get a full year of him, and then on top of Ray Davis, I think is an extreme wild card and 2 healthy tight ends that the Bills didn't really have most of last year. Khalil Shakir being featured, Curtis Samuel now in the offense, who was able to produce with Joe Brady in the past. And then the addition of Keon Coleman. I think it's going to be, and then another year where 4 out of the 5 returning starting offensive linemen, you're really returning 7 out of 9, and then adding a couple of, adding 2 rookies into the mix as well. 2 good looking rookies in Grable and Van Pran-Granger. One of them may sit this week, obviously, when the inactives come out. But ultimately, 7 out of 9 of the offensive linemen who know each other, 4 out of 5 starters, the bookend tackles, another year with Osiris Torrance in the offense, really familiar with Spencer Brown, so there shouldn't be any communication issues there. There's a lot to look forward to as you piece the Bills offense together. And just because it's new doesn't mean it's going to be a huge step back.
Yeah, and I think with the recent comments that Stephon Diggs made, I think that's why my answer was Keon Coleman, because the Bills did a lot to change their offense, but Keon Coleman is essentially the Diggs replacement, right? Where he's the new darling here, and I'm not going to classify him as a wide receiver 1, but the Bills have been hyping him up all offseason, and he's kind of taken over the cameras and his personality and everything, and it essentially, the script flipped where you went from Diggs, and now it's Coleman, and it's here's a new duo where it's Josh Allen and Keon Coleman, for hopefully years to come, as he's only 21 years old. I think he turned 21 in May, Coleman.
Yep.
So that's why I'm just very anxious to see what Coleman can do, because I'm not sure if I'm expecting him to go over 1,000 yards this year. I haven't really put out or thought out my projections yet. And I definitely don't think that he's going to replicate Diggs' production, especially when you add up his last 4 years combined. But I'm just very curious to see how they integrate him into the offense, because I feel like everyone else is a supplemental piece. Matt Collins, he's going to have his role. Curtis Samuel, he's going to be a role player. And then maybe with a little bit of add-on, because I think they're going to use him in a variety of different ways. So I think they're going to use him in the backfield. I think they're going to use him as like that glorified Isaiah McKenzie. Maybe he's going to be lined up in the slot. Maybe he's going to stretch the field deep, as will MVS. But I don't think those guys are going to dominate the target share just because they're going to have so many different roles. So that's why I keep coming back to Coleman, because if he pops, that's going to make Bills Mafia feel a lot better right from the get-go.
Yeah, I think what's also interesting here in this conversation is what this Bills offense, the players, and a lot of things that you just mentioned. The Diggs comments were interesting, as well as them, Josh Allen being called overrated. I have a feeling that he's gonna, at least to start with, is not going to take too kindly to those words. And a lot of times the Bills have played really tough defenses down the stretch. Look, they played the Steelers. The KC was ranked top of the league last year in defense. And it's a lot of what made them win the Super Bowl. It wasn't just Mahomes, as well as, the Steelers, like I just mentioned, and a few very Jets twice a year. And it always seems like there's a stretch of tough defensive football teams. Arizona Cardinals are not one of them. Not right now. They're not by the numbers. So this is a matchup by the numbers. The Arizona Cardinals defense, 32 in DVOA. They did draft a nice-looking Darius Robinson, an end that I thought has a lot of potential to stop the run, getting after the pressure, getting after the quarterback, as well as stopping the run. He's out. He got hurt in preseason. He was mainly one of their biggest additions. They did add Max Melton in the second round. I don't even think that he's starting at this moment. But other than that, they're also missing BJ Olajari, a guy that has been productive in this league. So borderline their first round draft choice. It'd be like the Bills. I mean, you don't really know what he was going to do, but it'd be like not having Coleman available, so they're in a little bit of a difficult situation with where they're at defensively. Blael Nichols, Roy Lopez, Justin Jones, Dennis Gardick, Kaiser White, Mac Wilson, Zaven Collins, Sean Bunning, Murphy Bunning, Budda Baker, Jalen Thompson, Starling Thomas, and Garrett Williams is their starting defense. And there's a lot of places to exploit this defense beside Budda Baker. And I really do like a little bit of Sean Murphy Bunning. I don't like a lot of talent on this defensive side. I think Mac Wilson is a solid linebacker, but there's not much there, dude. There shouldn't be a huge pass rushing presence. I think Josh Allen's going to be able to, at least early on, have his time to shine. And ultimately, this is not a defense that's going to cause havoc. I don't have really any issues beside maybe a splash Budda Baker play. I don't really see a ton on film and or with their numbers that would scare me immediately as I look through all of their defensive metrics. I think there's a lot to like about this matchup on the offensive side of the ball, and it may be one to really get to see this new high-flying Bills offense.
Yeah, and I was just thinking this game could be a microcosm of what's to come for the whole season, because what have I been saying? What have you been saying right along? That the Bills this season under Joe Brady, with the full season with Brady at the helm, that they're going to use a running game to set up the passing game. So with a newer defensive line here, now correct me if I'm wrong, but Justin Jones and Bilal Nichols, they're going to be the ends because they have a 3-4 defense, but they have that like defensive end / defensive tackle inside-outside flexibility, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so with Nichols coming over from the Raiders, Justin Jones coming over from the Bears, both of those guys have played either on the edge or on the interior before. So now I just think with the new pieces on that defensive line and some younger pieces as well, Brady might want to start by attacking them with the run game, and then that's when you open it up down the field to guys like Curtis Samuel, MVS, and maybe Keon Coleman. You go up the seam to Kincaid, you go down the boundary with Coleman, get some red zone targets, try to get the 12 personnel going. So I think that would be my plan of attack here, is get the ground and pound going, and then once the defense sucks in, just like we've been saying for the past, 6 months, that's when you take the top off with a healthy MVS, or you can run some trick plays with Curtis Samuel now that he's healthy as well.
Yeah, and I mean, as you look through all of their weighted numbers, like 31 against the pass, like it's just been a challenge. Like they haven't really had much good. 31 against the run. Like there's nothing through their numbers that stick out to me. And it's like, okay, they've been pretty good there. And I just don't think they did enough on the defensive side. Arizona did on the defensive side of the ball to threaten the standings, in my opinion, the standing of being the 31st, 32nd ranked defense. They have a few nice pieces. I know we talked about as rotational guys. It's overall, it's just not great, man. So I think that this isn't a matchup where the Bills absolutely need to take advantage of it. There's 3-4 that the Bills generally will play well against. They can create mismatches. They can get different players on the field, especially if they're in their 3-3-5, meaning 3 up linebackers, 3 defensive linemen, and obviously their nickel corners on the field in that formation. I just don't see a lot that they can do to slow the Bills down. The Bills would have to get in their own way. At home with this crowd, Josh Allen being called underrated, I don't think you'll see an offensive struggle, especially against what to me is a defense that got a lot of work to do, missing its first round pick in BJ Olajari. I would say, I don't know where Darius Robinson will end up ranking in terms of how good he is on their team, but I would say that they're missing 2 of their top 4 defensive players. So the Bills need to exploit that. They need to get after it and score points early.
Now, I will say the first game presents some challenges because you don't know how the opposing defense is going to line up, and you don't know what in-game adjustments they're going to make as well. So that is the one thing that Josh Allen and the offense does not have working in their favor, just because it's so new, it's so fresh. So first of all, he's trying to get that chemistry down with his receivers because Josh has only played a quarter in the preseason, if that.
Yep, a quarter.
Yeah, so they haven't had much time together to gel. Now they've had a lot of practice time, and luckily all these guys are healthy again. But it's going to take a little bit of an adjustment to get used to his new receivers. And then on top of it, you don't know how the opposing defense, this case the Cardinals, you don't know how they're going to line up just because it's the first game of the year, and they might throw some trick plays at Josh, just some disguised coverages to try to get him confused.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to switch something up. I mean, if you look at I think the most winnable matchup for the Bills is definitely going to be across that secondary. I mean, as much as I think that Murphy Bunting has shown some signs, he has struggled in coverage. Garrett Williams, a guy that they've used a lot last year, has struggled in coverage. Kytrell Clark, a guy that they have used in many situations on the corner room, has struggled. Starling Thomas, a guy that they start, has struggled. Their secondary is tough. I do like the Jalen Thompson / Budda Baker combo. Budda didn't have his best year last year personally, but he's still pretty solid. He's always going to give you really solid football. Jalen Thompson actually probably had his best year of his career. So there's definitely a decent safety duo there. But they're going to have to be decent with that cornerback room. I do think that there's going to be some fool's gold on the Bills receiving core, thinking that they may be better than they are when they're used to facing off against some of the league's best. Even when you play New England, some of the best coverage guys, including obviously what the Jets put out there. A lot of times the Dolphins do invest heavily into their DBs, even if they struggle. But this secondary, across the line, the Bills have winnable corner matchups, and you would like to see Keon Coleman and Curtis Samuel win against some of these guys who have struggled in this league, most notably Garrett Williams and Starling Thomas. Those are 2 very winnable matchups. I wouldn't be shocked if they played or played a little bit of Max Melton in there, their second round draft choice, because they haven't been very good in coverage by all their metrics. So it's going to be a very fascinating style, and I don't like their interior defensive line at all. Bilal Nichols and Justin Jones haven't been very good lately. Justin Jones was good a few years ago. Bilal Nichols a few years ago as well. But some of their metrics and pass rush win rates and run stops and stuffs, they're just not overly strong, in my opinion. So there's a lot of winnable matchups. I do think that Mack Wilson is still a very solid, maybe probably their best player. Mack Wilson, their linebacker coming over from New England, has had some pretty solid seasons, what he's been able to produce. So I think that the Bills will be in good position against this Arizona defense, where they can, start to take advantage of this thing early on. Especially, Mack Wilson himself is coming over to Arizona for the first time after going to Cleveland and New England early on in his career. So he's, going to be the guy leading their defense for the most part. And I'm pretty excited about it. Anything else that we're missing on the Bills offense? Anything else you want to see or say? You're looking forward to the offensive line? What else you got for the Bills offense?
I just want to say one more thing about the Cardinals defense. You
Sure.
might have mentioned this, but they're very thin depth-wise.
Yes.
If you look at their depth chart, LJ Collier, okay, I've heard of him. Chris Barnes, not undrafted free agent, but a free agent from the Packers. And that's really about it. Xavier Thomas, 5th-round draft pick at linebacker. Dadrian Taylor Demerson, I guess I heard about him a little bit because he was a 4th-round draft pick just from doing our draft coverage. But it's far and few between. Like, there aren't a lot of household names on this defense, and it gets really thin once you get into that second tier of defenders.
Yeah, it does. That's a good note. So right now, it might not be too bad. In a couple of the like their last rounds, last year second round pick in BJ Ojari is out, and so is their first round pick this year in Darius Robinson. So that certainly won't help anybody's depth if that was even the Bills. That's definitely going to take a bite out of anybody's depth. But outside of what they're going to look at from, maybe, like I said, Jalen Thompson, their safety core is decent. There's a lot of winnable matchups around this Arizona defense. So I think the Bills are in really good shape to be able to pop